If you're within 5 to 10 years of retirement, there are a handful of money decisions that can quietly cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And most people don't even realize they've made those decisions until it's too late. Welcome back to Retirement Today. My name is David Cox. I'm filling in for Jenna Carnes, and I want to welcome our co-host, Miss Jaclyn Gladhill. Jaclyn, good to have you here, dear.
Oh, it's so great to be here, Dave. I mean, this is such a fun episode, and I'm pleased to do it with you.
Thank
We
you.
don't get to see each other much, and so the
No,
time
it's
that we
been a
do
bit.
spend, it's such a blast.
Last time we did a podcast, you completely fell apart laughing, and I lost you for a couple of minutes there, if I recall correctly. Let's try not to repeat that. I'll try to behave better, which might make you um, not lose composure. As
Yes, yes. I
we'll be a
mean,
good team together.
yeah, yeah. You are funny, you are entertaining.
Thank you.
It's so much fun to be around and have conversations with you because,
Thank you.
sometimes finances aren't the easiest conversation.
No.
And, when you bring the energy and you bring the fun into it, it makes it so much more bearable.
Well, thank you. We've got a good topic today. We're going to be walking through some of the biggest financial mistakes we see people make in their 50s and their 60s, and more importantly, how to fix them. You
Yeah.
know, it's one thing to talk about mistakes, it's another thing to have a plan uh, to fix them or not do them yourself. So we're going to learn from other people today.
Yeah, and you're right, Dave. I mean, these are real patterns that we see with clients all the time. People who've done a lot of things right,
Right.
but still run into issues, when they try to cross that finish line.
Yeah, it's not about reckless behavior. We're not talking about that. We're talking about small decisions that can just compound and compound and compound at the worst possible time. So, in an effort to be brief, which I wasn't last time, we're going to be jumping right in right now. So, mistake number one, here it is. It's setting on too much cash before retirement. So
Mm.
I'll give you an example. We worked with a couple, both 62 years of age. They're planning to retire, in the next couple of years. They had over 1.2 million saved, so they were in a really, really solid position. The the thing was they had about a half a million dollars, 500,000 that was sitting in a savings account, really going nowhere, doing nothing.
And they felt good about that too. I mean, it gave them a sense of control and also
Right,
safety.
right. And there's some advantages to that, but they're concerned, what if the market drops as we're about to retire? And that's a legitimate concern. It's a valid concern. But what actually happened was something very different. While their money is in cash for 3 years heading up to our meeting with them, inflation rose, stocks bounced down and then bounced up and recovered well. And while their purchasing power just ebbed away little by little,
Mhm.
500,000 was not anywhere close to returning what inflation was returning. So they had a problem.
So they truly felt like they were being conservative, being safe, but now they felt like behind. Where did
Yeah.
that hard work go?
Yeah, they were behind, and the mistake wasn't their caution. I respect that. I value that. The mistake was not having a strategy for their cash. That
Mm.
was the mistake. So here's the fix, and we want to talk about the fix. The fix is you don't solve this by putting everything into the market all at once. You solve it by structuring your cash, structuring your money. And here's the way I would do it. I do it in 3 steps. Put a couple of years of withdrawals in safe, liquid assets, okay? And set that aside, and the purpose of that is liquidity, the purpose of that is safety. That's where your withdrawals are gonna come from. Secondly, invest the rest in your long-term plan, your
Mm.
growth plan, your beat inflation over the long haul plan. And then thirdly, gradually move into the market instead of waiting for the perfect time. So if you've got a big chunk in cash, don't just throw it all in all at once. Do a kind of a dollar cost averaging approach and gradually move into the market. And don't worry about the perfect timing. Nobody gets the perfect timing.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get it in there and get it to work with some assets already in safety. designed for income.
Yeah. And Dave, just having a plan, in itself and having a strategy that you can rely on really just drops your anxiety almost
Yeah.
immediately because then you're not having to keep up with what the markets are doing constantly. You're not having to check it every day and say, should I
Mhm.
change my plan? Should I change this?
Mhm.
There's no excuses or what ifs, right? We have a plan, we can focus on that and it
Yeah.
for it in the long run.
I see so many retirees that are way more anxious than they should be, and it's because they lack a plan.
Mhm.
And that's what we really help with. So mistake number two, let's dive into number two. The second mistake is not adjusting your investment risk as retirement approaches.
Mhm.
So we had an individual, 64 years of age, as they're about to retire, like 6, 8 months from retiring, they come to us, and they were 100% in stocks, 100% in the market. They had taken no change whatsoever to their portfolio as they approaching retirement.
And Dave, I know that this is pretty common. I mean, not something intentional by any means, but many people don't review their retirement accounts that often. I mean, there's so much else of life going on, right?
Right, right, and maybe their retirement accounts have done really well for them over time, and so
Mhm.
they're not watching them, they're not paying attention to them, they're not thinking about, "As I approach this, is it appropriate to make an allocation change of some time?" Sometimes, because the portfolio's performed well, there's no urgency to change anything, and so when we walk through with this client, what if we get a market correction? What if we get a 20 to 30% downturn in the market? What would happen to your retirement plan? What would happen if it happened in the next 6 months just prior to retiring? What would happen to your goal of retiring at that time? Well, it would probably change it pretty profoundly, I would think.
Yeah, probably delay it by several years in that situation.
There were a lot of folks back in the 2008 debacle, or the financial crisis, as we call it, that ended up having to work an extra 3 or 4 years because as it came upon us, they had made no allocation changes, no strategy changes, and they were fully exposed to the market and they wrote it down and they had to change their plans entirely. So
Mm.
you've got what we call a sequence of return risk. While you're working and you're contributing, you don't care from year to year what the market's doing per se. You can mix it up any kind of returns that happen that doesn't affect you. But as you're approaching retirement, as you're approaching the withdrawal stage, the sequence of returns matters profoundly. And that's a different kind of thing than when you're your age or in your 30s
Mhm.
or 40s. When you're my age, sequence of returns is a game changer. So again, the fix. It isn't about becoming ultra conservative overnight. That's not the goal. It's about aligning things appropriately. So here's 3 steps. Gradually reduce volatility as you approach retirement. Don't do it all at once. Just gradually reduce volatility as you approach retirement. Second, build a withdrawal strategy so that, again, you know where assets are going to come from those first few years. Create, thirdly, a buffer so that you're not forced to sell during downturns in the market. I like to make sure that my clients have safe money that they can draw income from, not their growth money, unless it's play money or an extra trip or a bonus this because the market's thriving. We can take a little gravy off the top. But their day to day, their month to month, their week to week, we like to draw those assets from safer type of vehicles that we're not worried about them bouncing around. We have time in our growth assets for recovery should a downturn happen. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the approach.
Yeah, well, and I bet that once you kinda showed them how to structure it that way, and especially structure the income for the first few years, it completely changed how they felt about retiring, and I know that right now, I mean, volatility is all over, right? We talk
Yeah,
about the market, we talk about how
right,
it's very unpredictable at the moment, and
right.
so it's so important to reassess your risk, and where you wanna be with risk. Because if
Yeah.
I'm retiring tomorrow and I'm planning on it, am I gonna be good or not?
You have to prepare, you have to plan, you have to think, and it can be overwhelming and it can be stress producing and it can cause sleepless nights, but it's critical steps that you have to take. All right, so mistake number three. This is a big one, and we're kind of bouncing around, kind of consistent with some of these themes, but is the third mistake is entering into retirement without a strategy of clear income plan. So, give you an example. We worked with a couple who said, we think we can retire. We've got assets, we've got different income stuff, but we're not sure how to pay ourselves. We've had a paycheck for the last 40 years. We're not sure how to create a paycheck from the things that we have. So they had IRA accounts, they had brokerage accounts, they had a possible pension, they had Social Security. What they lacked was the understanding of how to put it into a structure, if you will.
Hmm. Yeah, and a pile of money, but no paycheck,
No
right?
paycheck, yeah. Pile of money, I like that. It was all random,
Yeah.
basically, and that randomness creates uncertainty. Uncertainty leads them to underspend, and so they were
Oh.
so afraid of running out of money, they didn't enjoy their retirement.
Well, and
So,
Dave, that's a common problem.
oh,
I
it
mean, a lot of
really,
people
really is.
just are afraid to run out of money, and so you just kind of diminish your lifestyle, right? I
Yeah,
mean, you choose different lifestyle choices that
yeah.
you worked so hard for in retirement.
Yeah, you've spent a whole lifetime saving, sacrificing, doing without to get to this stage. And now you're at this stage, unless you have a plan, you don't know. You don't
Yeah.
know how long your money is going to go. But if you have a plan and it's clear and you've got assets for the future and assets for 5 years and assets for 15 years and assets designed for now, the next 2 to 3 years, and you know where it's coming from, it's tax efficient. That kind of that kind of plan
Mhm.
gives confidence.
Yeah.
So
Well,
here's the
and
go
you
ahead.
talk about just now, the 2 years, the 5 years, the 10
Yes,
years.
ma'am.
We talk about the bucket approach, and that's exactly what
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
explaining there, and we've talked about that on past episodes as well for our listeners and viewers. The bucket approach really establishes, short-term, medium-term, and
There
long-term
you go.
approach and where you allocate your money to get you that full retirement.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. I love the buck approach. Here's our fix here. Turn assets into a system. When do you claim Social Security? Maximize your Social Security. Figure out the way to integrate it into your overall plan. Secondly, which accounts do you draw down first? Where are you going to target? Which type of accounts? Thirdly, how do you manage taxes year to year to year to year to year? And fourth, how much can you safely spend without, again, you know, worrying about running out of money, the number one fear
Mhm.
that people have.
Yeah, and Dave, I bet once you get that set up for them, I mean, they're probably pretty relieved.
Yeah, there's a
Sigh,
big
yeah.
settling in there,
Mhm,
and you hear happy clients, and we like happy clients. So
mhm.
clarity provides peace and relieves or removes the guesswork of it from
Yes,
um,
and they're
the
having to
anxiety
make yeah,
associated.
and having to make decisions in crisis mode, right?
Yeah, crisis mode. Emotions and crisis mode are not your friend in retirement. You got to tell your
Yes.
emotions, go sit at the back of the bus. We don't want you driving the bus. We want to
Mhm,
have a plan that drives the bus, a strategy that drives the bus.
mhm.
So, mistake number four is missing tax planning opportunities. You and I, we talk a lot about taxes because I think they're so important in retirement. And
Mhm.
I've said it, and I'll say it every time we get together, probably. There are those who are informed and pay less in taxes. There are those who are uninformed and pay more in taxes. And we want to be like the first group. We want to be like the first group. We worked with someone who was about 63 years of age. Their plan was to delay Social Security till age 70, which is a decent plan and a good strategy
Mhm.
for many people. But in the in between years, between 63 and 70, their income dropped significantly, and yet they didn't take advantage of what I clearly was a
Yeah.
lower tax bracket, a very lower tax bracket.
Well, sounds like they didn't take advantage or, of the tax planning and really
No,
needed that.
no, they needed it desperately because you've got a window there that you've got to take advantage of. They could have
Mhm.
done partial Roth conversions. They could have reduced future lifetime taxes. They could have, made the most of their assets. Instead, they left most of their assets in IRAs and 401ks and tax deferred vehicles, which means that later when they start required distributions, they're paying more in taxes. And so their taxable footprint for the remainder of their lives just goes up, and they end up giving more to Uncle Sam than they do to their kids or their grandkids. That is extraordinarily common, this window. You've got a window, Jaclyn. Prior to 59 and a half, the IRS tells you you can't take anything out of your IRA or 401k. And then at 73 or 75, the IRS says you have to take this much. Okay. So you've got a 14, 16-year window where you've got a choice. I get total control. How much do I take out? Do I take a lot? Do I take a little? Do I take none? That is your window. That is your window to do tax planning. And that matters so much. That's the fix. The fix is between retirement and RMDs, required minimum distributions. That's your window for tax planning. Take advantage of it. I'll give you 3 steps. During that window, consider Roth conversions. Consider Roth conversions. I think they're an appropriate strategy for many, many people. Secondly, manage your income intentionally. Have a plan for those distributions. Where are they coming from? What are the tax consequences to that? Thirdly, look at taxes not just on a year-to-year basis. That's not tax planning, that's tax preparation. Tax planning is looking at how do I reduce my taxes for the remainder of my life, and maybe for the next generation as well.
Yeah, and those are such great points. I mean, we talk about the small adjustments and those years leading up to retirement can have a significant long-term impact.
Absolutely.
I mean, and if you have life changes, like you said, income level changes, you have grandchildren, children,
Mhm.
like, I mean, significant life changes. It's so important to discuss that with your financial professional, your financial advisor, so you can adjust your retirement plan,
Yeah.
because life does happen. And,
Yeah.
making sure that you adjust as soon as possible to that strategy and that long-term plan so you're not in crisis mode.
You're not doing retirement planning one time and then leaving it alone. You have to
Yes.
retirement plan year after year after year after year. Life changes, taxes change, health changes, families change,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
economies change, markets change. It can keep going. But the
Mhm.
idea is you need somebody to come alongside and help with the process, be a partner in the process. That's kind of
Yes.
what we do. If you're within a few years of retirement and you're not sure on one of these, how to keep your investments, your income, your taxes into a clear plan. That's the kind of work that we do. And we love it. And we love the folks that we get to work with. And they are some of our absolutely favorite people in life to get together with. And so
Mhm.
coming to work is a joy every day because I get to see Lori, I get to see Dan, I get to see Randy, I get to see these folks
Mhm.
that I've grown to love over the years. And we get to help them. We get to serve them. We get to give them peace of mind as they deal with retirement.
Well, and
Great,
Dave,
great.
you guys offer a complimentary consultation for our listeners and viewers that might want to learn more or get in touch with you. What is your phone number?
Yeah, it's 1-800, starting simple, 994-8993. Did I get that right?
Yes.
994-8993. Sometimes I invert those numbers or get them
There's a
wrong.
lot of nines and
There's
same
a lot
numbers
of
in there.
numbers in there. So let
Eh,
me kind of recap. We've got 4 big mistakes that people just like our listeners make all the time when it comes to retirement planning, and we don't want to repeat them. Here they are:
Mhm.
holding too much in cash, not adjusting risk, lacking an income plan, missing tax opportunities.
Mhm.
Those are the 4 of the biggest mistakes people make as they approach
Yeah.
retirement.
Well, and you're right. I mean, none of these I mean, these are kind of common themes that we see in this field, but they aren't obvious mistakes. I mean, you don't see them as being a red flag immediately. They're just things that people simply just aren't, visited, not really knowledgeable on, or they haven't
Yes.
revisited their plan.
Yeah, one of the things that we do for folks is we provide that extra eyes and ears, and we provide that extra um, vantage point that says, okay, here's some risks that you may not have entertained. Here's some things going on that you were not aware of. And
Mhm.
one of the things I would say to people, if they're listening to this and they're going, oh, there's two or three of those, maybe one of them stood out to you. Start dealing with one of these
Mhm.
and beginning to address it. And again, maybe talk to us, and maybe we can come alongside you. And we're not going to take everything over. We're going to help you. We're going to help you with
Mhm.
the process, creating a structure and a retirement strategy that lets you sleep at night. That's a
Yes.
good thing.
Yes, absolutely, Dave. Well, I just want to remind our listeners that, for that complimentary consultation, give them a call, Beacon Wealth Advisory, at 1-800-994-8993, or visit beaconwealthadvisory.com. I also want to remind our listeners and viewers that you can find all of our past shows on Apple Podcasts,
Right.
Spotify, or Amazon Music. It's just Retirement Today. And, we like to say, watch it on YouTube so you can see our beautiful faces, and see, kind of our conversation and our voices and our movements. So we like YouTube, and you can just search Beacon Wealth Advisory or Retirement Today. So,
There's
Dave,
some
it's
real valuable things on there that Jenna has done over the years. So I
Mhm.
encourage people to listen.
Yeah, and there's also short little videos that highlight, some of the common things or the main
Good.
things that we discuss in our podcasts, and we talk a lot about all these opportunities and these
Good.
mistakes in other episodes. So, I thank you, Dave, for joining me today. It was so much fun,
Always.
and really, it's a pleasure to learn about these common mistakes because I'm sure our listeners and viewers and myself, we see these. I can put my own plan into place and say, oh. Am I doing that? Because I
Yeah.
might,
Yeah.
and, it's just such helpful information. So thanks for listening, and we'll
You
see
bet.
you guys next time.
Blessings.